The rural atmosphere of Bathurst undergoes a radical change on the first weekend of October each year, and the city is filled to overflowing for the supreme racing test for production cars, the Hardy Ferrotto 500. Detailing the rugged 3.78-mile circuit is 1970 winner Alan Moffat.
Coming up Mountain Straight, right about this particular spot we'd be doing in the region of 120 miles an hour, and your mind goes towards the corner ahead, which is a fairly fast right-hander. Drop down into second gear and accelerate out of this particular right-hander. Very nice to see the surface of the track, and this particular section this year has been resurfaced. It allows for considerable less tire wear going up the mountain. Here's where the V8 torque really comes into its own. Coming up this particular section of the track is one of the more steep inclines going up the mountain. A hard left-hander. Again, another hard braking area here where we change down into second gear and accelerate out of the cutting. It's a bit tricky in through here where the car wanders and over to the right. The crowd are waving at you frantically to distract you a bit from your attention. This is a blind corner as we come up over onto McPhillamy Pass. Hard braking, and again hard on the accelerator to make sure your drift through here in top gear in excess of 100 miles an hour is right on the B. Over to the left is the view of the fabulous Bathurst Valley, and it's one that you don't particularly have time to look at during the race. We're in the S's now, and again this is just like a ping pong table. You got to keep your car and yourself in motion. Into the dipper, a hard left-hander, accelerate through, just miss the guardrail, and again accelerating down the mountain. Now the car practically runs by itself, and keeping your mind on your braking for the tight left-hander at forest elbow. You drop the car down into second gear, around this left-hander. There's no room for error here. If you try and pass anybody, you're going to hit the guardrail, and now we're practically on the straight. Up through to third, into fourth, and the little left-hander now truly onto the straight, and a fabulous view for any driver, which is probably the fastest length of racetrack anywhere in the world for a production touring car. Certainly we reach speeds upwards of 130 to 140 miles an hour. This is where the handling of our HO Falcons really comes into its own, with the spoilers on the front and the wings that we have on the Phase 3 this year keep our traction to a maximum, and we're floating down here at a tremendous speed.
On a fine, clear Sunday morning, cars are being given their final overhaul in the pit area a few hours before the start. And if practice times are any criterion, a new race record will be established. Moffat set the standard with a blistering 2:38.9 lap to become the first driver to break the 2:40 barrier, thereby shattering his own record set 12 months ago by a mammoth 10.1 seconds. No less than 20 cars clocked inside the previous best figures of 2:49, the 7 fastest of which were Phase 3 Ford Falcon GTHOs. Moffat's #1 works car is wheeled out to the #1 grid position. Again, Moffat will be driving alone, as will John French in the second works entry. David Mackay's Falcon, 4th fastest qualifier. Organising Secretary John Hinksman discusses the race.
Well, I certainly wouldn't like to try and pick the winner, because this year it's the most open 500 that we'll have, with the new Chrysler Charger in, and the Tirana, and of course the GTHOs, not to mention the other cars in the smaller classes. But I wouldn't like to pick the winner. It could be like getting the lottery. We've had to lengthen the pits to give each car at least 10 feet pit space, so the pits are now 600 feet long, and that is one of the longest pit systems in the world.
Phil Barnes co-drives with Bob Skelton. John French, backup driver to Moffat. Fred Gibson in the 3rd works Falcon. Gold Star champion Leo Gagan. Bob Beasley and Bob Muir share one of the 9 Charger entries. The only full-time professional in the race, Alan Moffat, with Ford marketing director Keith Horner. Bob Morris drives one of the 13 Falcons. Harry Firth masterminding the Holden dealer team. 1969 co-winner Colin Bond and David Mackay. In with a strong chance is Des West. Tension approaches its peak. In a few seconds, the 60 starters will be on their way. Those at the rear of the field battle for positions in the charge to Hardy-Ferodo corner. Moffat powers up Mountain Straight, already out on his own. So solid is the pace, the field is fairly well spread out midway through the opening lap. Moffat is pursued by French and Mackay, who's improved 1 place on his grid position. In fact, the first 8 in the early stages are all Falcons. Streaming through the S's, cars follow identical lines, coming through this testing area safely. Unleashing its newly developed power, Moffat accelerates the GTHO to something around 140 miles per hour down Conrod. French also has his foot down. Into pit straight, and Moffat sets about dictating the pattern of the race. It's a comparatively trouble-free event so far, and new lap records are a distinct possibility. As they again begin the ascent of the mountain, the Falcons maintain the premier positions, whilst in amongst the heavy traffic, Peter Brock's Turana XU1 and the charges of Gagan and Chivas are prominently situated in the D-class battle. The sheer potency and speed of Moffat's car on Conrod as he gradually lengthens his lead over French. Increasing in velocity, the wind places additional strain on drivers of the smaller vehicles. Gagan and Chivas continue driving their charges within their maximum capacity. The confident Moffat, who earlier on clocked a 2:44, is widening the gap on the opposition with each succeeding lap. Making a spectacular bid after being 10th early, Bill Brown scrapes the edge of the track to improve. Driving at a speed to suit himself, Moffat is able to conserve his car, which is responding to every demand. But with the race not yet 5 laps old, the Holden Dealer Works car of Combond is the first of the fancied entries to strike trouble. Team manager Harry Firth makes some pertinent comments.
Bondi got a whack from Bartlett, which shoved him into the curve, and the tyre got whacked on the curve, and we had to change it. But nearly a lap off, a fair bit of time, which we didn't wish to lose.
So it was that the first pit stop of the race was made by Bond's Turana, a lap lost that'll take some making up. Voicing his appreciation of the way French is fitting into the race plans is Ford Teamworks manager Howard Marston.
John runs second. He runs a backup car, does a very good job, and nice and easy on a car. So at the present stage, very happy with the progress.
The Falcons increase their margin over the smaller cars, who, whilst having a cornering advantage, are outsped on the straights. There's been a few bumps around the circuit to the consternation of Chrysler's racing manager John Ellis.
We've had a couple of instances of bad luck with a car crashing up the top with one of the private entries, Tom Norton, but generally they've held together very well, I think.
Though the wind is beginning to howl ominously, potential record-breaking speeds are being registered in all classes. A straying cardboard carton attaches itself firmly to Moffat's radiator, which is certain to cause apprehension in the Ford pit. Marsden talks of taking immediate action.
Yes, it's surprising what can happen in motor racing. The best prepared cars can pick up a cardboard box. So we're just looking at it now. We'll possibly pull him in very quickly, pull it off and get him straight out again.
Ignoring the pit signal, Moffat stays out on the track, and Marsden approves of his action.
We offered him the opportunity to come in, but he was so happy that he almost jumped out of the car and told us that he wasn't coming in. His car is running perfectly, and he's a very happy person at this stage.
The fierce pace is beginning to have its effect, and after about 90 minutes, pit stops are becoming more frequent. Des West comes in for attention to his brakes. Rated a good chance for major honours, he's been going well. But this unscheduled stop is costly, and by the time he's ready to rejoin the field, has dropped several places. Performing reliably, the Chargers face formidable class opposition from the Tirana XU1s, 13 of which are in the field. The smooth surface contributes to the consistent speeds of Bob Morris, and he's to set a new class and outright lap record of 240. John Walker is being slipstreamed by Bob Jane through Forest Elbow. Now being lapped regularly, drivers of the slower cars are making conditions fairly comfortable for their faster counterparts. The dashing Leo Gagan, yet to win a 500, expresses his hopes for this year.
Well, I think we're going fairly well at the moment. The last signal I saw, we were fourth, which is not bad. I've been pulling 6,000 revs in top down the straight. That's about 132.
But despite Gagan's confidence, Moffat is still doing it easiest of all. Bernie Henley and Ray Kalida's Mazda 1300, a favorite in its class, has troubles that put it out of reckoning. According to schedule, Digby Cook, a starter in every Hardy Verodo 500, brings the Tirana in for its first pit stop. Cook is relieved by co-driver Jeff Leeds. Forest Elbow, and Mackay leads Brock and Brown, with the latter pushing hard. Running in fourth place in the John Newell entry is Bill Brown. At McPhillamy Park, a burst tyre on Brown's car causes the most horrifying crash ever witnessed at Bathurst. Bill tells how it happened.
As I come over the blind approach to McPhillamy Park corner and at speed in excess of 100 miles an hour, a tyre burst on the car, causing it to veer straight ahead into the bank. And I was a bit worried, for the crowd's sake, that the car would sort of jump the fence and end up in amongst the people. There was just crashing and glass breaking and banging and carrying on. When the car finally came to rest, I was still conscious, and they just ran over and they started to tip the car up. And I yelled out to them to stop, smell petrol, and I asked if anyone's smoking, would they kindly leave. By this time the crash truck had arrived and I knew everything was all right. Myself, I felt one of my legs was caught. I didn't know what was going on there because at the time the back of the seat had broken and I was laying down flat in the car, luckily for me. And I suppose I've been there for 5 or 6 minutes and they finally got me out. I had a look at the car and then I went to Bathurst Hospital.
Fortunately, Brown's injuries were only of a minor nature. Prominent from the start, John Goss brings in his Falcon for its first pit stop, which cost him a place in the same lap as the leaders. Since he began racing in his home state of Tasmania 6 years ago, Goss has displayed a natural talent which is showing to advantage today. Goss's manager, Barry Sharp, is obviously pleased with the reliability of the car.
Yes, we're very happy with the car. Seems to be no problem at all. Had a bit of a muck-up in one of the pit stops due to a few cars being in the same place at the same time, but other than that, we're very happy with the car in general. You just said 43.8, which I think up to this stage will be just about past the lap of the race. Apparently there seems to be no stopping it. The more you drive, the more you get to learn everything about the car and the circuit, and I think it just comes natural.
The Goss Falcon in a dice with a Charger. In their initial